I walked into my childhood home after a 3-day business trip to find my $30,000 Rolex missing from my bedroom safe. The safe door hung open, completely empty. I knew immediately who took it. My sister Bridget had a history of helping herself to my things. I found her in the living room with both our parents, laughing about something on her phone. When I asked where my watch was, she looked at me like I was insane. My mother cut me off before I could finish, her voice sharp and defensive. She said I probably misplaced it somewhere. My father told me to stop accusing Bridget without proof. I stood there in the living room, my luggage still by the front door, trying to process what just happened. My parents were already dismissing me before I even finished explaining the situation. Mom, Dad, the safe was locked. Only family knows the combination. The watch was there when I left for Seattle on Monday. Now it's gone, I said, keeping my voice as calm as possible. Bridget rolled her eyes and went back to scrolling on her phone. Maybe you told one of your friends the combination. Howard, you're always having people over. That was a lie. I rarely had anyone at my apartment, let alone at my childhood home where I kept important documents and valuables in my old bedroom safe. I pulled out my phone and opened the Photos app, showing my parents the insurance documentation. This watch cost $30,000. I saved for 2 years to buy it after my promotion to regional sales manager. It's not something I would just misplace. My mother, Carol, crossed her arms and frowned at me. Well, I think it's pretty materialistic to spend that much money on a watch anyway. Family should be more important than possessions, Howard. My father, Tom, nodded in agreement. Your sister wouldn't take something like that. You've always been jealous of Bridget. Ever since you were kids, I felt like I'd been slapped. Jealous? I was 32 years old with a successful career in medical equipment sales. I owned my own apartment, paid my bills on time, and had built a life I was proud of. Bridget was 27 and had never held a job for more than 6 months. She still borrowed money from our parents regularly for rent, groceries, and whatever else she claimed she needed. I'm not jealous, Dad. I'm asking a reasonable question about an expensive item that's missing from a locked safe. Bridget is the only one besides you two who knows the combination. Bridget finally looked up from her phone. Are you seriously accusing me right now? That's so typical of you, Howard. Always trying to make me look bad. I'm not trying to make you look bad. I'm trying to find my watch. My mother stepped between us. Enough. Howard, if you're going to keep attacking your sister, you can leave. We don't need this negativity in our home. I stared at her, trying to understand how this had become about me being negative. Mom, I'm not attacking anyone. I'm asking about my property. Well, maybe if Bridget did need money, she should feel comfortable asking family for help, my father said, his tone suggesting this was somehow my fault. Wait, so you're not even denying she took it? You're justifying it? Bridget suddenly stood up, and tears started streaming down her face. It was so abrupt that I actually stepped back. Fine. Yes, I took it. Are you happy now? I was desperate, Howard. I needed money for rent. My landlord was going to evict me. I didn't know what else to do. Carol immediately wrapped her arms around Bridget, glaring at me over her shoulder. Look what you've done. Your own sister is crying because you've made her feel like a criminal. She admitted to stealing $30,000 from me. She was in need, Tom said firmly. Family helps family. You should be ashamed of yourself for making such a big deal out of this. I took a deep breath, trying to stay rational. Okay, fine. Where's the watch? I'll take it back, and we can figure out how to help Bridget with rent through legal means. Bridget wiped her eyes, and I noticed the tears stopped as quickly as they started. I already sold it. You what? I sold it to a pawn shop on 5th Street. I got $8,000 for it. My mind reeled. $8,000 for a $30,000 watch? She'd been robbed by the pawn shop, but that wasn't even the main issue right now. Okay, so give me the $8,000. I can't. I already spent it. Rent was $4,000, and I had other bills. Credit cards, my car payment, groceries, utilities. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say something, anything, that indicated they understood how wrong this was. Instead, my mother stroked Bridget's hair and said, "See what you can do with your insurance, Howard. And I think you owe your sister $2,000 for the emotional distress you've caused her today. She still owes that much on rent for next month." I actually laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You're joking, right? You want me to pay her after she stole from me? If you're going to keep up this attitude, you need to leave," Tom said, pointing toward the door. I grabbed my luggage and walked out. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands shaking on the steering wheel before I could even start the engine. When I got back to my apartment, I immediately started researching the pawn shop. By midnight, I'd discovered the terrible truth. The shop had sold my watch within hours of Bridget bringing it in. It went to a private collector who paid close to full value. The watch was gone, completely unrecoverable. I filed an insurance claim, but my policy had a $10,000 deductible for jewelry. Even with the payout, I'd lost money. More than that, I'd lost any illusion that my parents saw me and Bridget equally. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized this wasn't new. This was a pattern I'd ignored my whole life. Bridget got away with everything. I was held to impossible standards, and our parents would defend her no matter what she did. I didn't sleep at all. 2 days passed, and I tried to focus on work. Wednesday morning, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Text messages from aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in months. I opened the first one from my Aunt Linda. "Howard, I'm very disappointed in you. Your mother told me what you did to Bridget. She's devastated. You need to apologize." I scrolled through the others. They all said variations of the same thing. My Uncle Raymond called me a bully. My cousin Stephanie said she never expected this kind of behavior from me. Not a single message asked for my side of the story. I sent a group text to the extended family, explaining exactly what happened. I attached photos of the empty safe, copies of the insurance documents, showing the watch's value, and a timeline of events. I explained that Bridget had admitted to taking and selling the watch, and my parents had defended her actions. Most people didn't respond. 3 cousins sent back messages saying there must be some kind of misunderstanding. My cousin Jake texted privately, "I believe you, man, but you need to know Carol has been working the phones for 2 days. She's got everyone convinced you're lying because you're jealous of Bridget getting engaged." Engaged? To who? Some guy named Derek. Apparently it's new. Your mom is using it to make Bridget look like the victim of your jealousy. I hadn't even known Bridget was dating anyone, let alone engaged. I checked her social media and found a long post from the day before, going through a difficult time dealing with false accusations from a family member. It breaks my heart when people you trust turn on you for no reason, but I'm choosing to focus on the positive and the people who truly love me. Thank you all for your support during this painful situation. The post had 342 likes. Comments poured in with messages of support. My mother and father had both shared it with their own commentary. Carol wrote, "So proud of my strong daughter for handling this with grace. Some people will never be happy for others' success." Tom added, "Standing by our girl through thick and thin. Real family sticks together." I felt sick. They were rewriting history in real time, and people were believing it. Friday afternoon, I drove past Rosario's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. Through the large front windows, I spotted Bridget at a table surrounded by 6 women. Champagne bottles lined the table, at least 4 that I could see from the street. I pulled into a parking spot and watched for a few minutes. Bridget was laughing, clearly the host of this gathering. She kept refilling everyone's glasses. I knew the prices at Rosario's. My company had taken clients there. A dinner for 7 people with that much champagne would easily cost $1,500, probably closer to $2,000 with appetizers and desserts. I took several photos through the window. That evening, Bridget posted pictures from the dinner on social media, treating my real family to a girls' night out. "So grateful for true friends who stand by me through everything," Carol commented. "So proud of you, sweetie. You deserve all the happiness." Tom added, "That's my girl. Don't let anyone dim your light." I called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice cold. "What do you want, Howard?" "I want to know how Bridget afforded a $2,000 dinner at Rosario's if she's so broke she had to steal my watch to pay rent." Silence. Then, "She's been saving up from her job. Mom, she works 10 hours a week at a clothing store making minimum wage. That's maybe $80 a week before taxes. How do you know where she works?" "That's not the point. The point is, the math doesn't work. This conversation is over. Stop stalking your sister." "I'm not stalking her. I drove past a restaurant and saw her through the window." "That's stalking. You need help, Howard. Professional help." My father's voice came through in the background. "Is that Howard? Tell him if he files a police report, he's not welcome in our home anymore." My mother must have put me on speaker because I heard that clearly. "You heard your father. We'll deny everything. We'll say the watch never existed. You're just jealous and making things up. You'd lie to the police? We're not lying. We're protecting our daughter from false accusations. Do what you want, Howard, but there will be consequences." She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, stunned that my own parents had just threatened to commit perjury to protect Bridget. The next morning, I went to the police station. An officer named Detective Martinez took my statement. I showed him everything: the insurance paperwork, the photos of the empty safe, the screenshots of Bridget's expensive dinner, the text messages from my parents. He was sympathetic but honest. "Family theft cases are complicated, Mr. Howard. Without the physical watch or clear video evidence, it often becomes he said, she said. Your sister will deny it. Your parents will back her up. And even with this documentation, it's hard to prove beyond reasonable doubt. She admitted it to me and my parents. But will they testify to that? Based on what you've told me? Probably not." He took the report anyway, said he'd investigate. I left feeling hollow. That night, I received a certified letter. Inside was a cease and desist from my parents' attorney, claiming I was harassing Bridget. It threatened a restraining order if I continued to defame her character publicly. I called a friend from college who'd become a lawyer. She read the letter and laughed. "This is intimidation, nothing more. They're trying to scare you into backing down. Keep cooperating with the police. Ignore this." The following Sunday, my mother called again. Her voice was sweet this time, which put me immediately on guard. "Howard, honey, we need to talk. This has gone on long enough. Come to dinner tonight. Let's work this out as a family." "Why would I do that after you threatened me?" "That wasn't a threat, sweetheart. We were upset. You were upset. Let's start fresh. 6 o'clock tonight, please?" Something in her tone made me agree, though I regretted it immediately after hanging up. I arrived at 5:55, my phone's voice recorder app already running in my pocket. It was legal in our state to record conversations you were part of. I walked in to find extended family filling the living room. Aunt Linda, Uncle Raymond, both sets of my mother's siblings, my grandmother Phyllis, and several cousins. Bridget sat on the couch looking small and sad. My parents stood together near the fireplace. This wasn't a reconciliation. This was an ambush. One by one, family members told me I needed to apologize to Bridget. They said I was tearing the family apart. They said my jealousy was poisoning everything. I tried to explain what actually happened, but my mother cut me off. "We're not here to rehash your lies, Howard." Then my father stood up, clearing his throat. The room went quiet. "Your mother and I have been discussing our estate planning. As you know, we have approximately $800,000 in savings, retirement accounts, and property. Currently, our will splits everything 50-50 between you and Bridget. My stomach dropped. I knew where this was going. If you don't drop this police report immediately, we're removing you from the will entirely. Bridget will inherit everything. It's your choice. The room stayed silent. My grandmother Phyllis nodded approvingly. You brought this on yourself, Howard. I looked around at all these people I'd known my entire life, and not one of them spoke up for me. Not one questioned if threatening your son's inheritance over a stolen watch was reasonable. I stood up slowly. Let me make sure I understand. You want me to let Bridget steal from me without consequences, or you'll disinherit me. We want you to stop tearing this family apart over material possessions, Carol said. She stole $30,000 from me, and you're calling it material possessions? Family is more important than money, Tom said. I laughed, a harsh sound. Then why are you using money to threaten me? No answer. Do whatever you want with your will. I won't be extorted. Bridget committed a crime. That's not my fault. That's hers. I walked toward the door. My mother called after me. You're choosing money over family. I turned back. No, Mom. You chose Bridget over me, like you always have. Do what you want with your money. I'm done. I left to the sound of family members muttering about my selfishness. That night, Bridget posted an engagement announcement on social media. Photos of a huge diamond ring, her boyfriend Derek on one knee at an expensive restaurant, the whole romantic setup. The caption read, "He proposed." The best things happen when you surround yourself with positive people who lift you up. My parents' comments appeared within minutes. So proud. Welcome to the family, Derek. The proposal had happened at Rosario's, the same restaurant where she'd hosted the expensive dinner. More of my watch money funding her life. The post got 637 likes. 2 days later, Detective Martinez called. I interviewed your sister. She denied everything, said the watch never existed. Your parents backed up her story. Without physical evidence or witnesses willing to testify, this is going to be difficult to prosecute. I thanked him and hung up, feeling utterly defeated. A week crawled by. I threw myself into work, trying to pretend none of it mattered. My boss noticed I was distracted and asked if everything was okay. I lied and said I was fine. At night, I lay awake replaying the confrontation, wondering if I was wrong to push this. Maybe peace was worth more than justice. Then my cousin Jake called. I need to talk to you. Can we meet for coffee? We met at a shop halfway between our cities. Jake was 35, married with 2 kids, living 3 states away. We'd always gotten along but weren't particularly close. He looked nervous as we sat down. 5 years ago, Bridget stayed with me and Sarah for a month. Said she needed to get back on her feet after losing her job. We were happy to help. I nodded, remembering that. My parents had asked the family to pitch in because Bridget was struggling. When she left, Sarah's diamond earrings went missing. The ones I bought for our anniversary, worth about $4,000. We looked everywhere, but they were gone. My heart rate picked up. You think Bridget took them? I know she did. We didn't have anyone else in the house during that time. I mentioned it to your parents, very carefully. Your dad told me I was being ridiculous. Your mom said maybe Sarah misplaced them. I dropped it because I didn't want family drama. Jake, why are you telling me this now? Because I've suspected for years that we weren't the only ones. I think there's a pattern, and I think you deserve to know you're not crazy. We spent the next 3 hours on his laptop, reaching out to other family members with careful questions. The responses stunned us both. Cousin Amanda, now 31. Bridget borrowed her car 6 years ago, returned it with a destroyed transmission. The repair cost $2,000. Bridget promised to pay, never did. When Amanda pushed the issue, Carol told her to stop being petty about money. Uncle Richard. 8 years ago, Bridget lived with him for 2 months. $300 in cash disappeared from his bedroom. He suspected Bridget, but she blamed his teenage son. The family believed her until the son proved he was at soccer practice when the money vanished. By then, Bridget had moved out. Richard never got the money back. Aunt Jennifer. 7 years ago, she let Bridget use her credit card for emergencies only. Bridget racked up $5,000 in charges at department stores and restaurants. Jennifer had to pay it off. When she asked Carol and Tom for help, they said Jennifer shouldn't have given Bridget the card if she didn't want it used. Each story was the same. Bridget took something, got caught or suspected. My parents defended her. Victims were pressured to forgive and forget. The total amount stolen over 10 years. Approximately $47,000. My parents knew, I said, staring at the laptop screen filled with our notes. They had to know. Oh, they knew, Jake said. Sarah told me your mom paid her $1,000 to drop the earring thing. Said it was a gift for hosting Bridget, but it was obviously hush money. I asked each victim to write down exactly what happened. By the end of the week, I had documented statements from 7 different people. A clear pattern of theft spanning a decade. Then I found Patrick. Bridget had been engaged 3 years ago. I vaguely remembered it, but she and Patrick had broken up before I could meet him. I tracked him down through mutual social media connections and called him. I don't want to get involved in family drama, Patrick said immediately. I'm not asking you to. I just need to know what happened between you and Bridget. Long silence. Then, she stole from me. A lot. We met at a diner. Patrick was 33, worked in accounting, seemed like a decent guy. He ordered coffee and stared into it for a minute before talking. We dated for a year. She was great at first. Fun, spontaneous, always had plans. I proposed, and she said yes. About a month after the engagement, I noticed cash missing from my wallet. 20 here, 50 there. I asked her about it. She cried, said she was stressed about wedding planning, promised it wouldn't happen again. But it did. My watch disappeared next. A Tag Heuer, worth about $6,000. I confronted her. She admitted it, said she'd get it back. She never did. Then my checkbook vanished. I didn't notice for a week. By then, she'd forged 6 checks to herself, totaling $11,000. The bank caught it, called me about suspicious activity. I felt sick. The same pattern, just bigger amounts. When I confronted her with the bank statements, she broke down. Said she had a shopping problem, was going to get help, would pay me back. I broke off the engagement. She kept the $7,000 ring, by the way. Refused to return it. What did my parents do? Patrick's jaw tightened. Your mother called me a monster, said I was abandoning Bridget when she needed help most. Your father threatened to sue me for emotional distress. Their lawyer sent me a letter. My lawyer told me to walk away, said fighting them would cost more than the money Bridget stole. So I did. You never got repaid? Not a cent. I added Patrick's story to my documentation. The total amount Bridget had stolen over the years, over $60,000. My parents had enabled every bit of it. That's when I realized Derek was in danger. Bridget's new fiancé had no idea what he was marrying into. More importantly, I wondered if Derek had money. Was that why she'd targeted him? I made a decision. My grandfather's 80th birthday party was in 2 weeks. The entire family would be there. I'd bring my evidence, lay it all out publicly. Maybe shame and proof would finally force accountability. At minimum, Derek deserved to know the truth. It was risky. I could lose what little family connection I had left. But staying silent meant enabling Bridget to keep victimizing people. I spent those 2 weeks preparing, organizing evidence, rehearsing what I'd say. I barely slept. My hands shook every time I looked at the folder. But I knew this had to be done. The birthday party was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at my parents' house. They had a large backyard, perfect for the 60 people my mother had invited. Extended family, neighbors, old friends of my grandfather's, co-workers from his years as an electrician before retirement. I arrived at 2 o'clock with my folder tucked under my arm. Cars lined both sides of the street. Children ran through the yard. A banner reading, "Happy 80th Birthday, Frank," hung between 2 oak trees. Tables were loaded with food. My mother saw me first. Her face hardened, but she didn't make a scene in front of guests. She simply turned away, busying herself with napkins. My father ignored me completely, laughing loudly with a group of his friends near the grill. Bridget stood by the beverage table with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair going gray at the temples, well-dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt, expensive watch on his wrist. Derek, I assumed. I watched them for a moment. He seemed nice, attentive, holding her hand while she talked. She was showing off her engagement ring to a cluster of women, all of them oohing and ahing. The ring was massive, at least 3 carats, probably worth $20,000 or more. Jake found me first, squeezing my shoulder. "You sure about this?" "No. But it has to be done." Other victims scattered throughout the party. Amanda helping set up the dessert table. Uncle Richard talking to my grandfather in lawn chairs. Aunt Jennifer pouring drinks. They all knew what I planned to do. Most supported it, though Richard had asked me to leave his name out of it to avoid drama with his wife. The party continued normally for an hour. People ate, laughed, told stories about my grandfather. Frank sat in a place of honor at the head table, looking pleased but tired. He was 80 years old and it showed. His hands shook slightly when he lifted his water glass. But his eyes were sharp, watching everything. Around 3:30, my father called for attention. Everyone quieted down, gathering closer to hear. Tom gave a speech about family, about legacy, about the importance of staying connected across generations. He thanked everyone for coming. Then he mentioned how proud he was of his children. Bridget is starting an incredible new chapter with Derek. We couldn't be happier for them. He looked at me when he said it, his expression challenging, like he was daring me to ruin this moment. I stood up. "Can I say something?" Tom's smile faltered. "Howard, this isn't the time for. I just want to share something important about family, since that's what we're celebrating today." Grandmother Phyllis frowned at me from across the yard. My mother stepped closer to Bridget, protective. But my father couldn't refuse without looking unreasonable in front of everyone. "Make it quick," he said. I pulled out my folder and opened it. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt calm, focused. 3 months ago, my sister Bridget stole my $30,000 Rolex watch from my safe. She admitted it to our parents. They defended her, told me I should let it go because family helps family. Bridget's face went pale. She started to speak, but I continued. I thought maybe this was a one-time thing. Maybe she was desperate, like she claimed. But then I started hearing from other family members, people who'd also had things stolen by Bridget over the years. I read through the list. Jake's story about the diamond earrings, Amanda's destroyed car transmission, Richard's missing cash, Jennifer's credit card fraud. I gave dates, amounts, specific details. Each victim I named stood up when I mentioned them. Silent confirmation. The crowd went completely quiet. You could hear children playing in a neighbor's yard, a dog barking 2 houses down, but no one at the party made a sound. That's 7 different people over 10 years. Total amount stolen, $47,000. And before anyone says I'm exaggerating, I have written statements from each person. I held up the folder, showing pages of documentation. Bridget started crying, shaking her head violently. "That's not true. He's lying. He's making this up because he's jealous." My mother rushed to her side. "Howard, stop this right now. How dare you ruin your grandfather's birthday with these lies?" "They're not lies, Mom. And there's more." I turned to Derek, who stood frozen, his face confused. "Derek, I'm sorry to do this to you, but you need to know. 3 years ago, Bridget was engaged to a man named Patrick. During their engagement, she stole money from his wallet, stole his watch, and forged checks from his checkbook, totaling $11,000. When he broke up with her, my parents threatened to sue him. He walked away because fighting them cost more than the money she stole." Derek looked at Bridget. "Is this true?" Bridget's tears stopped abruptly. Her face went hard. "You know what? Fine. Yes, I took Howard's watch. Yes, I took things from these people. You all have everything, and I have nothing. None of you ever helped me when I needed it." The crowd erupted, people talking over each other, gasps, shocked exclamations. Jake stood up. "We tried to help you, Bridget. You stole from us while we helped you." Amanda joined him. "I let you borrow my car. You destroyed it and never paid for repairs." One by one, the victims spoke up, confirming their stories. The yard divided visibly into two groups: those who believed the evidence and those who sided with my parents. My mother's voice cut through the chaos. "This party is over. Everyone needs to leave. Now." But Bridget wasn't done. She turned on me, her face twisted with rage. "You have everything, Howard. Good job, nice apartment, money, everyone's respect. I've had to struggle my entire life. Everything has always been easy for you. I'm not sorry I took your watch. You deserved it for being so smug about your success." The words hung in the air. She'd just admitted it in front of 60 witnesses. Derek stepped forward. "Did you steal from me too? What are you talking about?" "My checkbook. I've been missing checks. And money from my account I couldn't explain." Bridget's expression shifted to panic for just a moment, then back to defiance. "I don't know what you're talking about." Derek pulled the engagement ring from his pocket. I realized he'd been holding it. Must have taken it earlier when she'd removed it to wash her hands or something. "I found 3 forged checks this morning while looking through my statements. Your signature was terrible, Bridget. I've been trying to convince myself there was an explanation. But there isn't, is there?" He handed the ring to my mother. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Campbell, but I can't marry someone who steals from me." He walked through the crowd and out to the street. Bridget screamed after him, blaming me, calling me every name she could think of. Several guests left quickly, uncomfortable with the confrontation. Others stayed, whispering to each other. My father ordered everyone to leave. The party broke up in chaos. People scattered to their cars. Family members split into obvious camps. Some approached me quietly, apologizing for not believing me earlier. Others left with my parents, shooting me angry looks. My mother told me I'd destroyed the family. My father said I was officially disinherited, no longer their son. Bridget continued screaming until Carol led her inside the house. Jake stayed with me, along with a handful of cousins who'd supported me. We stood in the yard as it emptied out, the birthday banner still hanging between the trees, food going cold on the tables. I'd done what I came to do, exposed the truth, protected Derek. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. My grandfather hadn't said a single word through the entire confrontation. He just sat in his chair watching everything with those sharp eyes. As people left, he stood up slowly and walked into the house without looking at anyone. I wondered what he thought about all of this. He was the one person I couldn't read. 3 days passed in tense silence. I went to work, came home, avoided social media. The family group chat I'd been part of for years went completely quiet. Then, on Wednesday morning, my phone rang. Grandfather Frank's name appeared on the screen. "Howard, I need you to come to your parents' house tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. This is important." "Grandpa, I don't think that's a good idea. Mom and Dad made it clear they don't want me there." "I'm not asking them. I'm telling you. Be there." Something in his voice made arguing impossible. "Okay, I'll be there." "Good." He hung up. I spent all of Thursday distracted at work, wondering what this was about. Jake texted me, asking if I'd heard from Frank. Apparently, he'd called several family members with the same message. 7 o'clock at Carol and Tom's house. Important. I arrived at 6:55. Multiple cars already filled the driveway and lined the street. I recognized most of them. Extended family. Through the living room window, I could see people gathered inside. My stomach churned. I walked up to the front door, just as a pickup truck pulled up to the curb. Grandfather Frank climbed out slowly, moving to the truck bed. He reached in and pulled something out. A red gas can. He walked toward the house, carrying it in one hand. The can was clearly full, heavy, the way it pulled at his arm. I could see liquid sloshing inside through the translucent plastic. Frank walked past me without a word, opened the front door, and stepped into the living room. I followed, my heart pounding. Everyone was there. Carol, Tom, Bridget, Jake and his wife, Uncle Richard, Aunt Jennifer, Amanda, Cousin Stephanie, Grandmother Phyllis. About 15 people total, all standing or sitting in the living room and adjoining dining room. Conversation stopped the moment Frank walked in with the gas can. The room went absolutely, completely silent. Every eye fixed on that red container. Frank walked to the center of the living room and set it down on the hardwood floor. The smell of gasoline immediately filled the room, faint but unmistakable. My mother broke the silence. "Dad, what are you doing?" Frank didn't answer right away. He just looked around at each person, his gaze moving slowly from face to face. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "Sit down. All of you. People Saturday." No one argued. There was something about the way he stood there, about the presence of that gas can, that made refusal impossible. I called this meeting. "You're all going to listen to what I have to say." He turned to Carol first. "You're my daughter. I love you. But you've failed as a mother. I've watched for 30 years as you destroyed Howard's sense of worthwhile. You coddled Bridget. I said nothing, because I thought you'd eventually see what you were doing. I was wrong to stay quiet." Carol started to protest. Frank held up his hand. "I'm not finished. You've enabled your daughter to become a thief. Not just of things, but of integrity, trust, family bonds. You chose protecting Bridget's feelings over teaching her right from wrong. That's not love, Carol. That's harm." He turned to Bridget. "You're a thief. You've stolen from 7 family members that I know of, probably more. You've stolen from 2 fiancés. You show no remorse. You blame everyone else for your choices. At 27 years old, you're still acting like the world owes you something." Bridget opened her mouth. Frank spoke over her. "Your grandmother and I have known about your behavior for years. We hoped you'd grow up. You haven't. You've gotten worse." Tom stood up. "Dad, what's with the gas can? Is this supposed to be some kind of threat?" Frank picked up the can, held it up. "This is empty, by the way, before anyone panics and calls the police." Several people visibly relaxed, but the tension didn't break. "I brought this can to tell you a story. When I was 25 years old, I watched my father's electrical supply business burn to the ground. Arson. Someone who thought my father had cheated them, even though he hadn't. That person felt justified destroying everything my father had built because they'd convinced themselves they were owed something." Frank set the can down again. "The fire destroyed the building, the inventory, 20 years of work. But you know what? My father rebuilt. It took 3 years, but he rebuilt stronger than before. I learned something from watching that. Destruction is easy. Any fool can light a match. Building something real takes time, effort, integrity." He looked around the room. "Carol, Tom, you've been burning down your relationship with your son for years. Bridget, you've been setting fire to every relationship you've had, every bit of trust people gave you. Today, that stops." Frank pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This is a copy of my new will. I had my attorney finalize it yesterday." My mother's face went pale. Dad, what are you talking about? I'm 80 years old. I have an estate worth approximately $1.6 million. Properties I've bought and sold over the years, investments, retirement savings. Previously, I had it divided among my children and grandchildren. You, Carol, and Tom were set to inherit $400,000. Bridget and Howard each had trust funds worth $100,000. The room was so quiet I could hear someone's watch ticking. As of yesterday, that's changed. Carol and Tom, you're no longer in my will. You get nothing. Bridget, your trust fund is dissolved. You get nothing. Howard, your trust remains. The rest of my estate goes to charity. Chaos erupted. Carol started crying. Tom turned red, yelling that Frank was senile and this wouldn't hold up in court. Bridget sat frozen, staring at the floor. Other family members started talking all at once. Frank's voice cut through the noise. I'm not senile. I'm clear-minded, and this will is legal. My attorney made sure of it. You want to know why I'm doing this? Because you've shown me who you are. Carol, you chose enabling a thief over protecting an honest son. You threatened Howard's inheritance to force him to stay quiet about a crime. Tom, you backed her up every step. You bullied your own son for expecting basic justice. Bridget, you've stolen over $60,000 from family and romantic partners, and you've shown zero remorse. Why would I leave my money to people who have no integrity? My mother was sobbing now. This isn't fair. We did what we thought was right. You did what was easy. There's a difference. Frank wasn't done. He pulled out another folder, this one thicker. I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago. After the birthday party disaster, I needed to know the full truth. What he found confirmed everything. He looked at Bridget. Derek didn't just leave because of Howard's watch. He found $6,000 missing from his checking account, forged checks, just like with Patrick. Derek filed a police report the day after the party. There's an active warrant for your arrest, Bridget. You didn't know that, did you? Bridget's head snapped up, her eyes wide. The investigator also discovered something interesting. Carol and Tom, you've paid off Bridget's victims 9 times over the past 10 years. Richard, you thought Bridget got away with that $300? No. Carol gave her the money to pay you back, but Bridget kept it. Jennifer, that $1,000 Tom sent you after the credit card incident, that was supposed to be full repayment. Bridget was supposed to give you the other $4,000. She never did. He flipped through papers. Total amount you two have paid trying to cover up Bridget's theft. $63,000 of your own money. Money you could have saved. Money you could have helped Howard with when he was starting his business career. Instead, you threw it away, teaching Bridget that theft has no consequences. Tom started to argue. Frank cut him off. I contacted Detective Martinez. Gave him everything my investigator found. The case against Bridget isn't just about Howard's watch anymore. It's fraud, identity theft, forgery, across multiple victims. The prosecutor is very interested. Carol stood up, shaking. Dad, please. She's your granddaughter. You can't do this to her. I'm not doing anything to her. She did this to herself. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. Bridget suddenly bolted for the door. She grabbed her purse and ran. Carol and Tom chased after her. We heard a car start, tires squealing as she drove away. The room emptied quickly after that. Family members left in small groups, some angry, some thoughtful, all uncomfortable. Within 10 minutes, only Frank, Jake, Amanda, and I remained. Frank sat down heavily in an armchair. He looked exhausted. I'm sorry, Howard. Sorry I didn't do this 20 years ago. I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight. I watched them hurt you your whole life. I kept thinking Carol would change, that eventually she'd see what she was doing. She never did. I should have intervened sooner. You did enough, Grandpa. More than enough. Better late than never, I suppose. He looked at me with tired eyes. Maybe now you can have some peace." I thanked him, but the words felt inadequate. Jake offered to drive Frank home. After they left, I sat alone in my parents' living room for a few minutes. The gas can still sat in the middle of the floor. I picked it up, confirmed it was empty like Frank had said, and took it with me. I didn't know if I'd ever see my parents again. But for the first time in months, I felt like maybe things could actually get better. The days following Frank's confrontation felt surreal. I went through work motions, had conversations, but everything seemed distant. My phone stayed silent except for texts from Jake checking in. A week later, Detective Martinez called. "Mr. Howard, I wanted to update you. We arrested Bridget Campbell this morning. Multiple charges: theft, forgery, identity theft, fraud. The evidence your grandfather provided was extensive. She's being held on $75,000 bail. What happens now?" "Arraignment in a few days. Given the evidence, I expect she'll take a plea deal. These cases rarely go to trial when the documentation is this solid." I thanked him and hung up. That evening, I saw a brief article in the local newspaper online. "Local woman arrested for multiple counts of fraud." Bridget's photo beneath the headline. The article mentioned charges spanning multiple victims over several years. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Just a dull sadness that it had come to this. Jake called that night. "Have you heard from your parents?" "Nothing." "You?" Radio silence. "My mom told me Carol and Tom have stopped answering calls from anyone in the family. Word is, they're putting their house up for sale, moving somewhere else, running away." "Yeah. Some relatives are still defending them, saying we all ganged up on Bridget. Most people are keeping quiet, probably feeling guilty they enabled her for so long." 2 weeks passed. I focused on work, threw myself into a new account that needed attention. My boss praised my dedication. I got assigned to lead a major project, something that would have excited me a month ago. Now it just felt like distraction. Grandfather Frank called regularly. We talked about everything except the family drama. He told stories about his years as an electrician, about growing up during harder times, about lessons he'd learned. These conversations became the highlight of my week. One evening, Frank asked me to visit him at his assisted living apartment. I drove over after work, found him sitting in his small living room surrounded by old photos. "Sit down, Howard. I want to show you something." He pulled out a wooden box, opened it carefully. Inside was a watch, vintage, from the 1950s based on the style. This was my father's watch. He wore it every day for 40 years. When he died, he left it to me. It's worth maybe $5,000 to a collector, but to me, it's priceless. He held it out to me. "I want you to have it. Grandpa, I can't take this. It's a family heirloom. You are family. Real family. Not the kind that shares blood and nothing else. The kind that stands for something. Honesty, integrity, doing what's right, even when it costs you everything." His eyes were wet. "I'm 80 years old, Howard. I don't have much time left. I want to see you wear this now, while I'm here to see it, not after I'm gone." I took the watch with shaking hands. It was heavier than expected, solid, real. The leather band was worn smooth from decades of wear. I put it on my wrist. "Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you for being the man I hoped you'd become. For standing up when everyone else backed down. For having more integrity at 32 than I had at 50. We spent the rest of the evening looking at old photos, him telling stories about people I'd never met. When I left, he hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you, son. More than you know." I drove home with his watch on my wrist, feeling a strange mixture of grief and gratitude. 2 months later, I stood in my apartment looking at a newspaper article I'd printed out. Woman sentenced in multi-victim fraud case. Bridget had taken a plea deal. 2 years in county jail. 5 years probation after release. Mandatory restitution to all victims. The judge had been harsh, according to the article. Noted the pattern of behavior, the lack of remorse, the manipulation of family members. Called it a systematic exploitation of trust over many years. Bridget would have to repay everyone, though it would take years. Prison wages were minimal, but it was official acknowledgement, court-ordered restitution. The $8,000 from my watch, the money from Jake and Amanda and Jennifer and all the others. Even Derek and Patrick were included after filing their own reports. My parents hadn't attended the sentencing. According to Jake's sources, they'd sold their house and moved to Florida, cut off contact with almost everyone. Some relatives still heard from them occasionally. Carol sent Christmas cards. Tom called his brother once a month. But they never mentioned Howard or what happened. I'd lost them, but strangely, I felt okay about it. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Williams, helped me understand that you can't lose something you never really had. My parents had never seen me clearly. I'd been chasing their approval my whole life, not realizing it was never available to me. You're grieving the parents you wished you had, Dr. Williams explained, not the ones you actually had. That's harder, but it's also freeing. She was right. As weeks passed, I felt lighter. The constant anxiety of trying to be good enough for people who would never think I was good enough finally lifted. My new family formed naturally. Jake and I talked weekly, got together monthly. His kids called me Uncle Howard. Amanda, Jennifer, and some of the other cousins started a group chat. We met for dinners, went to movies, celebrated birthdays. Real relationships built on honesty instead of obligation. Grandfather Frank remained the center of it all. His health declined slowly, but his mind stayed sharp. Every Sunday I drove to his apartment. We watched old westerns and talked about life. He taught me things my father never had. How to rewire a lamp, how to patch drywall, how to know when to fight and when to walk away. You did the right thing, he told me one Sunday. Standing up for yourself cost you everything. But losing people who don't value you isn't really loss. 3 months after the sentencing, I got a Facebook message from Derek. Howard, I wanted to thank you for exposing Bridget at the party. I know it wasn't easy. I did some research after we broke up. Found out she'd stolen my credit card information. Was planning to max it out before our wedding. She had a whole system worked out. You saved me from years of financial devastation and probably divorce. I'm dating someone new now, someone honest. I'm grateful, despite the painful way I found out. Thank you. I read it 3 times. At least some good had come from the confrontation. Derek had escaped. So had I, in a different way. At work, things improved dramatically. My confidence grew. I stopped being a people pleaser. Started setting boundaries with difficult clients. My boss noticed, promoted me to senior regional manager. My salary increased 30%. I bought myself a new watch. Not as expensive as the Rolex, just a nice Seiko I'd been eyeing. It meant something, a symbol of rebuilding. I wore it on my right wrist. Grandpa's vintage watch stayed on my left, never coming off. 4 months after sentencing, a letter arrived. Prison mail from Bridget. I almost threw it away, unopened. Curiosity won. Her handwriting was cramped, small. Howard, I've had time to think in here. Court-mandated therapy, mostly, but it's making me look at things differently. I stole because it was easy, because I knew Mom and Dad would protect me, because I never had to face consequences until now. I blamed everyone else, said you had everything, and I had nothing. That wasn't true. You worked for what you had. I just took. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I hurt you badly, hurt a lot of people, but I wanted you to know, I finally understand what I took from you. It wasn't just a watch. I read it twice, then filed it away. It wasn't quite an apology, more of an acknowledgement. A small step toward accountability. Maybe in a few years, when she got out, we could have an actual conversation. Maybe not. Either way, I didn't need it to move forward. 5 months after sentencing, Grandfather Frank called me on a Tuesday evening. "Howard, I need you to come over tomorrow. I have something for you." I arrived Wednesday afternoon with Chinese takeout, his favorite. We ate slowly, him talking about a documentary he'd watched about World War II. After dinner, he handed me a small envelope. Inside were keys to his pickup truck. "Grandpa?" "No. You're still driving that." "Not anymore. Doctor says my reflexes are too slow. Time to hang up the keys. I want you to have it. I already have a car, so now you'll have a truck too. For when you need to haul things, build things, help people move, real life stuff. Take it." The truck was a 1995 Ford, paint faded, over 200,000 miles, worth maybe $2,000. But it was his truck, the one he'd driven for 30 years. I accepted it, understanding what it meant. Trust, legacy, continuity. 6 months after sentencing, I was driving that truck when Jake called. "You sitting down?" "I'm driving." "What's up?" "Your mom called my mom. First time they've talked in months. Carol said they're coming back for Thanksgiving. Want to reconcile with the family." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Did she mention me?" "No. And that's the thing. She wants to reconcile with everyone except you. Said you're the one who tore the family apart." I pulled over, needing to focus. "What did your mom say?" "Told Carol that wasn't going to work. Said if she couldn't acknowledge what really happened, she wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving. Most of the family is backing that up. We're having Thanksgiving at my place this year. You're invited, obviously. Your parents aren't." Something released in my chest. "Your mom stood up to Carol?" "She did. A lot of people are done enabling. We watched what that did to Bridget. No one wants to repeat that pattern." That Thanksgiving, I sat at Jake's table with 23 people. Real family, chosen family. We went around the table saying what we were grateful for. When it was my turn, I looked around at these faces, these people who'd stood by me. "I'm grateful for truth," I said. "Even when it costs everything." Grandfather Frank squeezed my shoulder. "Me too, son. Me too." 7 months after sentencing, I got an email from my insurance company. Final settlement on the watch claim. With the restitution Bridget was paying and the insurance payout, I'd recovered $20,000 of the $30,000 value. Not perfect, but better than I'd expected. I took half that money and put it in a savings account earmarked for Grandpa's medical expenses. He protested when I told him, but I insisted. "You gave me something worth more than money," I said. "Let me give back in the small ways I can." 8 months after sentencing, I was visiting Frank when he got quiet, thoughtful. "I've been thinking about that gas can. What about it? Whether I went too far? Scared people unnecessarily. Did you really bring an empty gas can?" "Yes." "I'm not insane, Howard. Just theatrical." I laughed. "It worked. Everyone still talks about it." "Good. Because the point wasn't the can itself. It was the metaphor. Your parents were burning down their relationship with you. Bridget was burning down her life. Sometimes people need a dramatic wake-up call. Did it work? For you? Yes. For them? He shrugged. Some fires can't be put out. You just have to let them burn themselves out and hope something new can grow in the ashes. 9 months after sentencing, I started dating someone. Rachel, a project manager I'd met through work. She was honest, direct, had her own successful career. On our third date, I told her everything about my family. Figured she deserved to know what she was potentially getting into. She listened without interrupting, then said, "That must have been incredibly hard, standing up like that." "It was. I'm glad you did it. Says a lot about your character." We kept dating. 10 months after sentencing, I sat in my apartment reflecting. The stolen Rolex had cost me $30,000 and my immediate family. In return, I'd gained self-respect, real relationships, and peace. The math didn't work on paper, but in life, it made perfect sense. Looking at Grandpa's watch on my wrist, I finally understood what he'd been trying to teach me. Value isn't about price tags or blood relations. It's about integrity, honesty, standing for something real. I'd lost a family built on lies and dysfunction. I'd found a family built on truth and respect, and that made all the difference. My phone rang. Rachel, asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I said yes, grabbed my keys, and headed out. Life wasn't perfect. Grief still surfaced sometimes, wishing my parents had been different people. But mostly, I felt okay. Better than okay, actually. I'd fought back when it would have been easier to stay quiet. I'd lost people who never valued me anyway. I'd found people who did. In the end, standing up for yourself always costs something. But the cost of not standing up is always higher. I got in Grandpa's old truck, started the engine, and drove toward the future I was building. One honest choice at a time. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where standing up for what's right cost you relationships? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how others have navigated these difficult family situations. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and know they're not alone in dealing with toxic family dynamics. Subscribe to the channel for more true stories about overcoming family betrayal and finding your own path. And share this with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long, but I wanted you to understand the whole journey. Sometimes the path to peace is painful, but it's worth walking. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you find the courage to stand up for yourself and the wisdom to know your true worth. Take care of yourselves out there. Remember, real family isn't always blood. It's the people who see your value and stand beside you when everything falls apart. Until next time, stay strong.